Today we're going to do a transmission oil change on a 2002 Pontiac Grand Am SE. Get it up in the air, get the jack stands underneath, chock on the back wheel. This particular unit's got an automatic transmission, 2.2 liter Ecotec engine. On this model of car, somebody thought it'd be a good idea not to put a transmission level dipstick in. Where you're going to put the transmission fluid in is this red fill cap down here. It needs to be removed, and you can add fluid there. We're actually eventually going to have to test the fluid level by removing a plug, and with the engine running and level, we'll pour transmission fluid in until it starts to drip out that plug, and then we're full. Here's what we're dealing with underneath the car. There's the transmission pan. We're going to remove most of those bolts, leave a couple in towards the front. Hopefully with a big drain pan underneath it we can get the back to flop down, get most of that fluid to go into a pan. We're going to catch it and measure how much we took out. It's going to be important to know how much we need to put back in. We're underneath the car. We're looking up and I see a very small little head of a plug sticking out the side of the transmission. Okay, don't be fooled by that plug that I showed you the first time. Hopefully you can see the drain plug there for the oil, and the screw that you're going to take out or bolt you're going to take out is right there on the transmission. That's where you're going to check the level. When you do these jobs, it's always a mess, no matter how hard you try. So you're going to want to have the biggest splash pan you can. So I've got a regular drain pan and then the lid of a tote to hopefully catch most of the splashing. Alright, get those back bolts taken out. Let it drip down there. That's why you're going to want to have this big splash pan, because it's coming around all around the pan a little bit, mostly in the back there. And if you're lucky, you can eventually get it to tip down like this and drain into the pan. Then you have just that one bolt remaining. I can see here that somebody's done me the great disservice of not using the factory gasket last time. They used the RTV silicone. So we're going to have quite a job scraping all that off, and that's probably the reason why this thing was leaking, which is the main reason why I'm changing the fluid right now. I've got the pan completely off now. Actually, it looks like it does have the original factory reusable gasket on it, but it appears maybe they had a leak at some point and tried to just put some silicone around kind of this back half here. Once you have the pan off, you're going to want to inspect it. Make sure there's no large chips or shavings of any kind in this pan. That would be a sign of serious problems. There is a magnet here that's there to collect small particles that are floating around in the fluid. You're going to want to clean that. So we're going to scrape this gasket off, clean this pan thoroughly, and get ready to put it back on with a new gasket. I've gone around the surface where the pan meets up with a putty knife and scraped off most of the silicone. You're going to want to follow up with like a cloth and get that really cleaned up. And now we need to take this filter out. Now we're going to take the old filter out. It should just be held in, basically pressed in up here. There's a little snout that goes in a bushing up there, and it should just be able to pull on that and it'll fall out, probably with a gush of fluid coming out a little bit. Oh yeah, gush of fluid for sure. No doubt about that. So have a paper towel ready to clean up your hand. While cleaning the pan, I noticed that in the area where they're having some trouble with the leakage, there's some imperfections here. So I'm going to take a flat file and smooth those out. Hopefully that'll get that gasket to seal around that spot. You can start to see the spots that were sticking up a little bit. Keep filing a little bit. Got that file down about as good as I can. I'll probably go back with just a little bit of RTV in this one area. We've got the new transmission filter. It comes with a bushing. We're going to have to get in there and pry that out of the old one and then lube this one up and tap it back in. Here's the AC Delco part number. We've also got a new Fel-Pro high quality gasket to put back on there. Now I'm going to work on getting that little bushing out of there. You could probably get away with leaving it in there, but I'm going to change it. They make special tools that make getting them out of there pretty easy, like a little pick that grabs them and pulls it out. I'm going to try several different things. Flat blade screwdriver, putty knife. Trying not to scratch the body, the aluminum there, but just work on getting that out. Okay, this is not pretty, but I've taken basically my putty knife and as carefully as I could kind of collapsed it. Now I think I can reach up there with a pair of pliers, wiggle it, bend it, pull it out. I did get it out of there. Made just a little mark here on the outside, but you mostly want to be sure you don't mess up any of the inside. Here's the unit, like it's the old unit. I had to kind of crush it and then eventually it would pop out of there. Now we'll put the new one in. What you want to do now is put a properly sized socket backwards on an extension. We're going to put just a little bit of grease on this socket and then stick that seal to it. I'm going to very carefully just lube that seal on the outside, the mating surface, with just a little bit of grease, which we're going to wipe off after it's installed. Alright, we've got that stuck to the socket in the extension, and the grease is holding it on there. So now we'll very carefully tap that into place. Okay, forget everything I said. My basic advice is if you can feel up in there and your old one feels good, there's no tears in the rubber, I would leave it. As far as getting this in there, basically I tried the socket, that didn't work too good. So I just basically kind of pushed it into place, it kind of stuck there, and then I very carefully took a hammer and just started kind of tapping in a circular motion and trying to drive it in straight, and that wasn't too bad. So now get a cloth up in there and clean everything off, and we're getting ready to put the pan back on. Well, let's put the filter on first. Alright, this is the back side of the filter. There's no snaps or tabs, so basically that snout right there is all that's holding it in. So let's slip it up in there. Slipped up in there with no problem, just a slight wiggle and a push on the snout, and it fully seated up there. Now we just put the pan back on. We're going to snug the bolts up for now, then we're going to torque them in a cross pattern. Got the pan reinstalled. Basically just carefully go around in kind of a cross pattern, snug them up, then go around in a cross pattern again and tighten them until you can kind of feel them come up against a stop. Basically this gasket has metal inserts, so you can't really over squish it. So once you feel them kind of stop, then you're going to want to get a torque wrench and go in a cross pattern and tighten them to about 10 pounds. I basically just choke up on my socket wrench and kind of give them a little snug. Okay, this is what the cap looks like. You're gonna wanna have a funnel with a long neck on it, and then down in there you can see the fill port. I measured it and we took out about 5 quarts, so I'm going to start with a little over 4, and then we'll take that check plug out. Got this little plug removed now so we can fill until it starts dripping out of that hole. Obviously you're going to want to put a pan underneath that hole, and then you're going to have to fill on top and wait for it to start dripping out the bottom. For this year car, you're going to want to go with the Dextron 3 transmission fluid. Got it filled up, just shy of 6 quarts. I could hear it dripping from down below, so let it finish dripping, put the plug back in, and should be all done. Might want to do just a little inspection. We've got the old transmission fluid on the left, the new on the right. But the real telltale sign of a problem is the smell of this stuff. So I've got a little on my finger. Gonna smell it. If it smells pretty much like transmission fluid, a little bit like oil, it's got a funny smell to it, transmission fluid does, but you'll know right away if it's been burned. It's gonna smell like an electrical circuit board, fire, maybe like if you smelled brakes that going down a mountain, if a truck has got its brakes burning, just a real rancid, terrible smell. If it smells like that, then you've probably got trouble.